right, let's talk about coding. So the first thing I would like to do today, and this is something that you've either done already, or if you haven't done that, you'll do that today, is to create the skeleton of my app. Right, so to create apps using React, we'll use something called create React app. Again, this is part of the very first video we send you to start coding, create React app. So create React app is a tool created by who? Does anyone know? Facebook. Yeah? Remember, React belongs to Facebook. So they are trying to facilitate as much as possible the process of creating an app, create React app. Yeah? So before doing that, everyone, you don't have to do that right now, right? But just so you know, you need to open a terminal. A terminal is this black window with white text on top. How do you open a terminal? It depends. If you're using Mac computer, there is an app called Terminal, literally, right? If you're a Windows user, how do you do that with Windows? CMD, that's an option, correct? Or with modern Windows, you got something called PowerShell, which is the same, but with blue background instead of black, right? It doesn't matter. The important thing is to have this sort of application. If you struggle with that, at the end of this workshop, we'll have a look together. All right, and then what? Look, create React app, and then, sorry, it's at the very bottom. Here you go. Create React, oh, what is it? All right, let me clear the window now. Create React app, and then space, the name of our app. What's the name of our app? Yes, in your case, it will be Codeflix, because you are going to create the Codeflix app, right? In my case, because it doesn't matter, actually I'm going to throw the app as soon as we finish the workshop, I would like to call it what? Summer boot. Let me call it Brexit, right? Now that's a bit pessimistic, right? Let's find something a bit nicer for the first day. Summer, all right. Summer feels better, right? Cool. So my app is going to be called Summer. And what that implies, as soon as I press enter on my keyboard, look, Facebook will automatically pull all the dependencies, all the libraries, all the frameworks, all the plugins, all the stuff at the end of the day that we need to start creating apps, right? That process may take 2 to 3 minutes, but thankfully we have to do it only once every time we create an app, right? Does it make sense? All right. So, because now it's creating the app, in reality it's creating a folder in my system, a directory, with all the files and dependencies. The next thing we need to do is go to Visual Studio Code, VS Code. That's the editor that we recommend, the text editor. Can anyone tell me a reason why this is the most popular editor in the world today, according to GitHub?
Is it because it's well supported by Microsoft?
Correct, that helps, right? The owner of VS Code is Microsoft. As you know, it's one of the largest companies in the world, right? So that gives stability to the software. Any other reason? No? Okay, I'll give you some reasons, right? And why I'm trying to give you some reasons. Because even though you may be thinking this is not relevant, think about that. If you're doing a job interview, if you have to present some piece of software, you can use VS Code and you can explain why you use VS Code. That proves attitude like, hey, this developer, you know, he or she knows why he's using or she's using that tool. So VS Code, first of all, as Jack said, is supported by Microsoft. So big company behind, is open source. Does anyone know what open source means?
That anyone can check the code.
Correct. Anyone can check, anyone can contribute to the code, yeah? Which is a good thing. because if you want to add a new feature, technically speaking, you are allowed to. More reasons. You got a new release every month. So you know that every month you got a new release. If you are using stuff like Sublime, you never know when the next version is coming. With VS Code, every month you get, this is Agile, you see? Agile, every month new stuff. They listen, every month new stuff. The other reasons, some of them are not obvious. So for instance, if you are an Atom user, you may have noticed that Atom struggles in the long term. If you try to open a big file with Atom, it cannot handle it. VS Code is super efficient dealing with big files. Also, and this is very personal, the color scheme to highlight is very good with VS Code. If you are an Atom user, you see a lot of red text, red color. It's not obvious, but if you are working with a laptop 8 hours a day, you know, it's not good for your eyes to look at red text all the day. VS Code is more bluish, so it's better, right, for your health. And to me, last but not least, in which language VS Code is written? It is JavaScript, that's correct. So if you want to become successful JavaScript developers, you should trust JavaScript tooling. We've seen Slack. Say it again? They use JavaScript and TypeScript. We'll see in the future what TypeScript is, right? But the base of the software is pure JavaScript. To the point that we at Codery use VS Code in our platform. You will see that today at 2 p.m. At the time you do online coding, you will see that the editor is literally the same because it's JavaScript and JavaScript runs everywhere. All right, so I got my VS Code open. And then what? Then we need to open the project. How do we open a project with VS Code? There are different ways to do it. The easiest one is you go to File, Open. Pretty predictable, right? It's like using Photoshop or any other software. File, Open, and then what? This is important. We need to find where our project is. This is controversial. This is controversial because you went to the terminal, you create the app, but where is that app in your system? You need to figure out. Generally speaking, it's in your home directory. So for instance, if you are a Windows user, the home directory will be something like that. C:/users/username sexyboy19/ here is the name of your app, Summer in my case. If you are a Mac user, well, you know these things, right? If you're a Mac user, you need to go to the home directory / the name of your app, right? So we need to know where the app is in your system. And then with VS Code, using the graphic user interface, we need to navigate and we need to find where that folder is. In my particular case, I created it somewhere in a different location, but I'll find it. Because my default folder is a bit different. But even if you cannot see, I found my summer folder. No problem at all. So we just open it. And then I got my project loaded on my VS Code, as you can see. On the left-hand side, I can see all the files and folders that Facebook created for me. And hopefully only that, right? I hope Facebook is not spying us by running this, but you never know. Anyway, once we have that, does anyone know what do we need to do next to start feeling the joy of modern coding? How do I start the server?
npm start.
Correct. On every single project today in JavaScript, we need to start the server. The server is the engine that will offer you the images, the text, the layout, all these things, right? We need a server. You know, when you go HTTP, www, Yeah, cosmopolitan.com, right? This runs because there is a server behind. 4chan.com, there is a server behind. So every piece of software needs a server. How do we start the server? It's very easy. Let me show you what to me is the best way to do that. In VS Code, you will see on top an option on the menu. You cannot see that at the moment on my screen, unfortunately. But anyway, you just need to go to the menu, and you will see on the right an option called Terminal. It's a bit, I cannot zoom it, but it's there. It's on top, right? Terminal, and then you will see New Terminal. Look at that. What we got here, we got an integrated terminal. It's the same we got here, but as part of VS Code. What is the advantage of running in that mode? Productivity. If I have my terminal here and I have my code here, I may have to go back and forth. However, if I got my terminal here, I don't need to go back and forth. Everything is available on the same view, right? So this is about productivity. From the very first day, I'll remark many times, many small, tiny productivity hints that by themselves won't make any difference on your performance, but all of them combined will make you work faster, more efficiently. Also, if you come to a job interview and I'm the interviewer and I see that you are using the integrated terminal, I will think to myself, oh, look, this guy knows what he's doing, right? Or what she's doing. Tiny details that make the difference. All right, as Sonia suggested before, the way we start the server is by typing on the terminal npm. We'll see what npm stands for, but doesn't matter for now. Just type npm space start. And then hit enter, right? And now it doesn't work, right? So that's unexpected. I don't know why this doesn't work, but let's figure out. All right. There may be a problem with the Pre Dependency Tree. All right, so that happens. Has anyone seen that problem? No?
I get error sometimes.
You get error.
Life cycle.
Yeah, correct. The thing is, with modern software development, sometimes these problems happen, right? Don't forget that our application is very big. Even though we build nothing, does anyone has any idea about the weight? How many megs of data do we have here in our app? Lots. It's about 350 megs. And we've done nothing yet, right? 350 megs. Megabytes. Yeah, megabytes, which is a lot. If you remember arcade games, Street Fighter, all these things, you have an amazing game in 24 megs, and you have fun for years. Today we needed 350 megs for nothing, right? Hey, but this is modern software. It works in that way, right? Because new projects are so huge, sometimes it's challenging to make sure that all the components work well together. It's like a car, like a complex car, right? Like a Rolls Royce, complex, a lot of engineering under the hood. So that's a good example. I'll tell you something, I've never seen that problem. That's why I wanted to do that exercise, because you may have the same problem. So then, let's learn together how to deal with it. What we have here, it says, look at the red text. The first thing is we should be able to analyze the problem. And based on that, we may take an action. The React scripts package provide blah, blah, blah. Don't try to install manually, blah, 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 blah. Look, I like that message. Again, I have no idea about how to solve this problem. Because of a reasons, developers struggle to say, I don't know. I think it's very healthy. It's very healthy because if you don't know, it's better to say, I don't know. But next message is, but let's figure out, let's work together to fix the problem. To me, that's the right attitude. So I don't know how to solve the problem, but I can read the message that Facebook is sending to me. It's saying, if you prefer blah, 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 add that thingy to an M file in your project. Again, I have no idea about what's going on, but I like or I want to trust Facebook in that respect. Don't try to understand everything in coding, right? Coding is a huge wall. So at some point you need to be pragmatic. And to me, now, I don't want to understand why one of the 2,000 dependencies is not working. Facebook is telling me, add that into a new file. Look, into a .m file. Can you see that? .m file. So if I understood the message correctly, Facebook is telling me, do right click here, and then click new file. The name of the file should be what? .env, correct. What env stands for? Environment, correct. In the long term, we'll deal with that file. For instance, I'll give you an example. On task number 28, 29 in Codeflix, you will learn how to set up a database. And you will learn how to set up a local database when you are under development stage. But whenever you deploy your app to the cloud, you don't want to access your local database. Yeah? You want to access a remote database. So thanks to that file, we'll see how to switch, how to connect to one database or the other. But yes, that will happen probably next month. For now, let's just create a file, and then Facebook says, add that to your file. Again, no idea why, but I just want to trust them. And then, let me run npm start again. That looks better. It didn't fail this time. That means that the fix worked. And now I got a warning. I got a warning because I have other apps running in my system. You may have that problem at some point, but this is just a warning. Say, hey, developer, you're already running an app in your system. Do you want to run this app as well? What do you want to say here?
Yes.
Yes, fantastic. W, enter. And then, look, oh, that looks better. I didn't do anything, but automatically my system, my macOS, open a new tab in my browser. You see the tiny loading icon on top? And now it's trying to bootstrap my app. Here you go. Yeah? That's the way you prove your system is ready for coding. That's all you need. The turning spinner of React. Yeah? This is the React logo, if it's the first time you see it, right? Don't do like a friend of mine that told me if I was watching Chernobyl on HBO, right? This has nothing to do with Chernobyl. It's the React logo. All right, and then what's next? Look at the message. It's pretty straightforward. Edit source/app.js and save to reload. Can anyone tell me how do I do that? Correct. Back to Visual Studio. Yeah, and then can anyone tell me how to open that file? src/app.js. Correct. On the left-hand side, you see there is an src folder. We open it, and then look, app.js. This is the entry file, the root file of every application. It's the first file you had to deal with, right? And what do we see here? Can anyone tell me with what language is that? HTML. There is like, oh, everyone, HTML, yeah. Does anyone disagree on that? Esteban? Esteban, who has been coming to some meetups recently, right? He knows that already. This is very similar to HTML. So your answer wasn't crazy. You didn't say Python, right? Looks like HTML. And 90% of the time will be the same as HTML, but there will be some tiny differences. And we'll see which differences and why. But however, for the first day, because we don't want to learn many things, you can assume this is sort of HTML. And actually, if you paid attention, this HTML code generates that web page. Look, you see, line number 11, edit, source, app, and save to reload. Edit, source, app, and save to reload, right? This is the source code, this is the result. Source code, result, source code. On the next 2 months, and hopefully for the rest of your life, because that will imply you have a lot of success, this is what you will be doing. Coding, go to the browser, check the result is okay, coding, yeah? Which approach is better? I'm going to give you two options. Option A, you change something in the code, you go to the browser, if it's okay, you go to the next task, you do it, you go to the browser, if it's okay, you go to the next task. If it's not okay, then you fix it. This is option A. Option B is at 9 a.m., I start coding like hell for 8 hours, and after 8 hours, I go to my browser to see if my 3,000 millions of lines work as expected. Which approach is better?
The first one.
The first. It feels really well with the agile pattern. Yeah? Don't try to run many lines of code at once and then assume everything will work. Yeah? When I did that conference for Google, I had to type like 8 or 9 lines of code, and it was very stressful in front of 2,000 people. There was a guy from Google that he write 80 lines of code in a row. It worked really well, but everyone was like, oh, if it doesn't work, he'll struggle to see why, because 80 lines of code is a lot. Yeah? So, do a small change, check the result, and back, right? For instance, let me change the title. The title will be something like, Welcome to the Summer App. Happy face. I save the file. To be honest, I didn't even have to save the file. That happened automatically, not in your case. So one of the workshops we'll be doing shortly is about productivity, how to avoid saving the file manually. But for now, unfortunately, you need to save the file. How do you save a file? Well, this is not about coding. Yeah, it's about using a computer, right? Control S if you're a Windows user, Command S, or go to File, Save, all the things. Once the file is saved, regardless of the approach you follow, then look at what happened when I go back to the browser. Let me change the question. Do you think my app will reflect the change? Will I have to refresh the browser? What do you think?
You don't have to refresh it, you can refresh yourself.
That sounds very interesting. And you are right. You are right. Look, promise, I'm not going to refresh the browser. I'm just going to switch to my Google Chrome. You see? It's there. I know some of you, if you are probably below 25 years old, you're thinking, no, but that's obvious, right? It's not obvious. It's not obvious. That's a new thing. That feature is less than 2 years old. Before that, for 15 years, every time I changed something, I had to move with my finger, go to the refresh button, hit it, right? You may think it's not a big problem, but you may be doing that action hundreds of times every single day. So again, this is one of the awesome things of modern development. One of the reasons why a company may be interested in hiring you is not because all the things you know, because of course you'll be surrounded by people more expert than you in all these things. However, you have fresh knowledge. So you may know only little, but the things you are expected to know are new things, trendy things, right? This is like, when you speak with your 12 years old nephew, it's probably he knows less than you about life, but I'm sure he knows more than you about Fortnite and all these things, right? So don't underestimate how important these tiny things are. So that's the same thing. That's the same thing. Don't underestimate how important modern software is. That's one of the reasons why I founded Codery, because when I was working at HSBC, some of the graduates that came to the company through the famous bootcamps in London, they learned things like jQuery. You know jQuery? Have you heard of jQuery? jQuery. jQuery, yeah, that thing, right? Sounds like something very old, yeah? So today we have React. We are learning React. React is the king of the JavaScript libraries. Before React, does anyone know what we got before? What? Angular, correct. React before Angular.
Angular by Google, right?
Correct, Angular by Google. So we had Angular by Google, now we have React by Facebook. It's a big fight, it's a big dogfight, right? People at Google are not happy because they have lost the kingdom. Yeah? Whoever controls JavaScript dominates the world. It's not for Google anymore, unfortunately. We'll see. Does anyone know?
Just a question.
Yeah.
Since it's all open source,
Yeah.
you can just use it. What's the profit they have by? Why do they fight?
Yeah, there is no direct profit. There is no direct profit. However, there is indirect profit. I will give you an example. So obviously, Google, Facebook, they don't make any business by running this, right? Because they have to pay a lot of engineers, a lot of money. So they don't make any revenue out of that, yeah? However, they control the web. Yeah, and I think that helps you to prove that if you control the web indirectly, yeah, you have a lot of potential, right? And they have a lot of money. That's why they can afford that. So we had, going back in time, right? Now we have React. That's been outstanding for a few years already. Still very strong, very big muscles. Before that, we got Angular. And before Angular, we got jQuery. Yeah, more rudimentary, much worse than Angular. jQuery died sort of in 2011. That was when Angular was introduced. That's why learning jQuery has no benefit. It's completely pointless. I know some people say, yeah, but some companies they're still looking for jQuery developers. All right, so if you check your inbox and you get an offer to work with jQuery, what would you think? And they pay money, they pay good money. Do you think, will you consider an offer on jQuery?
No.
Why not?
I'm not ready. I don't want to go back.
Correct. The thing is, that's very smelly. If they do jQuery, that means, they had 8 years to update the stack. You may be thinking, oh, 8 years is not that much. My car is 10 years old. No. 8 years in JavaScript time is the same as 200 trillion years in human time, because that evolves super quickly. Right? So if they haven't changed that, that means they have a legacy system that has been maintained by probably hundreds of developers over time, that no one cares, that no one understands. Yeah? Distance. That's not a good project for you, right? And on top of that, even if you like jQuery, even if they pay you good money, the thing is, no one will hire you afterwards. No one will hire you. So just stay away from these technologies. And what's my message? Some bootcamps in London, they're still teaching jQuery. That doesn't make sense. If you're a junior developer, if you join my team, I will completely accept that you need to learn a lot. But at least if you know ABC, at least I want you to know modern things, right? I want you to tell me what's going on now, what happened last week, because this is what you're learning now, right? All right, let's think about the future. So we had jQuery, then we had Angular, then we had React. What's the main menace? What's the main rival of React today? Vue. Vue. Have you heard about Vue? Vue.js, right? Does anyone know who looks after Vue? The Chinese. Yeah? There's a lot of politics here. You can see the scope of JavaScript, right? So by the first time since 1995, the Americans may lose the control on the web. Maybe Chinese. We'll see, right? At least the good thing is, because now everything tends to be the same, standards and everything, imagine, well, not imagine, in 2 months you will learn React, of course. But if because of whatever reason, in 5 years' time, it turns out that Vue is the king, you will see how easy learning Vue is. Because in reality, React and Vue, they play with the same principles, right? And that's a good thing, of course. So don't worry too much. The web will evolve. We'll see where, but it will evolve for sure. The important thing is not to be the best developer, the best React developer in the world. Is to be able, first of all, to have a good background in coding, and then to be able to adapt yourself to the new stuff, right? That's how it works.
And all these developments, I don't know which word is it, system, languages.
Yeah?
It's like an evolution, or
Yeah,
jQuery has nothing to do with React?
Yeah, all these things are frameworks, libraries, components, plugins running on top of JavaScript. Because JavaScript is the standard, right? JavaScript is what runs everywhere, so we need JavaScript. But the question is, if we need JavaScript, why do we need React? We could use JavaScript, right? Does anyone know why we need React? Yeah, it's a library, but can we build the next multi-trillion app without React? Only with vanilla JavaScript, with plain JavaScript? It will take longer. Correct. Back in time, JavaScript was a very tiny library, very small, right? Does anyone know how long it took the creator of JavaScript to write the first version? 10 days, yeah? Or 2 weeks, if you include the weekends. Still, you can imagine how simple JavaScript was at the beginning, right? That means that if you wanted to do anything, you needed help, utilities. Yeah? Everything changed in 2011. Because in 2011, JavaScript was so popular that the group that look after the standards decided to change their mind and have a new release of JavaScript every year. Do you remember what I told you about Agile, about VS Code? With VS Code, you get a new version of VS Code every month. With JavaScript, you get a new version of JavaScript every year. So they release new features often, every year new stuff. Thanks to that, now with JavaScript, you can do many things. We'll talk about arrays. Some of you already know what an array is. If you don't know what an array is, we'll explain what an array is. To do even the most fundamental operations with arrays, we needed a library because JavaScript didn't support that. In other words, you had a tiny language with many plugins. That was very hard to balance. Thankfully, now it works on the other way around. JavaScript is big, so it's all based on standards. You don't need to learn a plugin that someone has created in his spare time. Everything is standard, or almost everything. There is still a black hole. There is a part of JavaScript development that unfortunately still today is not nicely implemented by JavaScript. And that's the UI part. If you want to build a user interface, and everyone needs to build a user interface because that's the way you connect with your customers, of course you can do it with plain JavaScript, but you may commit to suicide after a couple of days, right? That's why React, what they say is, React says, we did all that dirty job for you, right? So if you want to display a box on the screen, this is an example. Instead of writing 30 lines of code, you can do it with 1 line of code. Hey, sounds good, right? So React covers that 20% of JavaScript that unfortunately is very hard to deal with. I believe, based on what happened in the past, that JavaScript will keep doing push-ups, will keep getting bigger baskets, and at some point, React or any other competitor won't be necessary at all, because whatever React is doing today will be part of JavaScript standard maybe 2022, I don't know, right? But the reality says that still today, in 2019, we need React, or Vue, or something else. But we need, vitamins, we need to, to build the UI, right? This is why we are using React. It goes without saying that React is the most popular library, yeah? At least in Europe and in the US. If as part of your life plans you are thinking to move to China, Vue is more popular in China, right? But again, once you learn React, learning a new one is not that complicated. All right, because we're a bit out of time, just quickly a couple of things. Imagine that we are starting to build our app. We got investment from a venture capital based on Abu Dhabi, and we got 50 million to start working, right? I say, okay, right, I can start working with 50 million, so let's start creating our app. Obviously, you don't want the React logo in your app, right? Because that doesn't make sense. So, let me show you. Let me delete everything. Look, you'll have to do the same as part of your conflicts. You see, I'm selecting the header, I'm deleting pretty much everything, and now I can start, you know, if you like painting, you paint using an empty canvas, a white canvas, right? You don't paint on top of that, you paint on top of that. So that's the same thing. Let's clear everything, and now let's display, welcome to summer. And let's see what happened. Oh, it clearly changed. We don't have the logo, we don't have that dark background anymore. We have a title. Do you think the size of the title is appropriate or not? No. Our UX department will complain. Yeah? And then you say, I don't care, I'm the founder, I do whatever I want. But it's not the way it works, right? You should listen. You should listen to your colleagues. They say, that's not an appropriate title. Can anyone tell me how to increase the size of my text? H1, header, right? So you know in HTML, you can do that. You can surround your text with something called H1. H stands for heading, and 1 means big heading. So now if we go back to the browser, yeah, looks bigger. Do you know CSS? You know what CSS is? What's CSS for?
It's for styling.
Styling, colors, all these things, all the visual aspect of your app. Will train CSS quite a lot. Yeah? Because of a reason I never understood, some senior developers ignore CSS. They think they are really good in in JavaScript, and probably they are, but they don't care about CSS. To me, that's a wrong approach. CSS is a vital aspect of coding. Yeah? If you create a fantastic application, but it looks horrible, no one will use it. Does it make sense? We are not expecting you to become the next Leonardo da Vinci, but at least you should be able to display things on an appropriate manner, and we'll be training these things during the bootcamp. So imagine that we want to start dealing with CSS. Something you will notice with React is that, generally speaking, you have the JavaScript file, you see app.js, and look at that. You got the CSS file alongside. If I click on it, here I can customize the styling of my app. I can even set up specific styles for mobile, for instance, right? Because on mobile, I may want to change a few things. So, do you remember what I did with app.js? I removed everything, right? I'll do the same thing with CSS. I don't care what Facebook proposed as a standard styles. I like to start from scratch. And now, imagine that I want to change the color of my title. What steps do I need to follow? CSS, all right, CSS, and then what? Container, right. What's the container? Div class app, correct. So, how do I refer to that class in my CSS? Dot, correct, dot app. And now, how do I change the color? Color, give me a nice color. Green, that's very boring, right? Let's use magenta. Yeah? And then, let's see if it works. Ooh, it's there, right? In the corner, not ideal, but hey, the color works. How do we make the text bigger using CSS? Font size. 400 pixels. Let's see what happened now. Maybe too much, but hey, works, right? So that's what we'll be doing. We'll be interacting a lot with our JavaScript, our HTML-ish, and of course our CSS. Yeah? Something you will notice as part of Codeflix is that even though the instructions will be pretty clear, you'll have some room to bring your creativity. We are not going to tell you add a green border here, add a blue background there, because we want to give you the opportunity to build something unique, right? I think that makes sense. We'll see how everyone evolves in that direction, of course. All right, is there any questions? No? Right, so that was the very first introduction where we cover a bit of everything, to be honest. This will get deeper and deeper over the next couple of months. And then what's next? Let me stop recording.